Have you ever wondered how economies tick? What keeps markets fair, businesses accountable, and the environment protected? The answer lies in a complex web called regulation. But what exactly is it? Where does it come from? And how has it shaped the world we live in today? Regulation is a clear-cut way for governments to exert control over economic activity. However, it is a multifaceted term that didn't just appear overnight and is constantly evolving.
1. Introduction. Our aim is to introduce readers to those practical and theoretical issues that we see as central to the study of regulation. We set out to describe the nature of those issues, to indicate how regulatory practitioners and scholars have dealt with them, and to offer arguments on potential responses to regulatory difficulties. The focus is not on providing how-to accounts of regulatory experience. Instead, our aim is to highlight the contested areas and issues that are produced by regulation. We hope that this volume will add to exchanges between different viewpoints. Many of the examples draw on the British experience, but we aim to make the text relevant to a wider international audience interested in regulatory activities broadly defined. 1.1 The evolving landscape of regulation, from contested issues to global maturity. Over the past decades, regulation has been a topic that has stimulated discussions in a host of disciplines, notably law, economics, political science and public policy, sociology, history, psychology, geography, anthropology, management, and social administration. Given this breadth of interest, regulation is a subject or field of study that calls for a multidisciplinary approach. Economists, for instance, are likely to benefit from the insights of political scientists and sociologists on such matters as the practicalities of implementation and enforcement. Similarly, lawyers' messages concerning the limitations of different kinds of rules and enforcement processes might profitably be taken on board by economists and others. Analogous points could be made from the perspectives of other disciplines. They will attempt both to draw from a wider range of disciplinary perspectives and to be accessible across disciplines. Highly technical approaches and terminology will be avoided where possible. It is hoped, therefore, that the analysis offered will prove useful to regulatory studies in a wide variety of areas. Regulation has become a matter of topical debate in a way that it was not even a single decade ago. This global phenomenon was partly prompted by the activities of international organizations. Criticisms and concerns with regulatory orthodoxies became increasingly prominent during the financial crisis of 2007 to 2009, when calls for deregulation and light-touch regulation suddenly gave way to daily demands for more rigorous regulation of the financial markets. Elsewhere, too, regulation had attracted supporters and opponents alike. Supporters saw regulation as a technocratic device that had the potential to exert rational controls over important economic and social activities. Skeptics regarded regulation as little other than red tape and a potential burden on economic activity. It is, therefore, fair to say that by 2011, the claim that we are living in an age of the regulatory state had become widely accepted as the R-word had penetrated ever more social domains across countries. Over the past decade, regulation has risen in the academic agenda to become both a field of study in its own right and a fertile source of new perspectives on the agendas of longer-established disciplines. Substantial contributions to regulatory debates have been made by political scientists, economists, lawyers, sociologists, anthropologists, and others. Writings on regulation have become well represented across scholarly publications, and a diversity of university courses and programs, as well as research centers, have emerged to deal with various aspects of the theory and practice of regulation. Some of these have treated regulation as a generic subject taught in interdisciplinary programs. Others have specialized in specific areas, such as financial services, environmental protection, communications, or utilities. As a consequence, regulation can be said now to have reached a state of maturity, both in an intellectual and in a practical sense. Intellectually, theoretical perspectives have developed rapidly into an impressive body of scholarship and, in the world of practice, there has developed a distinct and expanding international and national regulatory community that shares similar languages, concepts, and concerns. The language of regulation has penetrated diverse policy domains, and talk of regulatory strategy has become part of administrative life. In this process, central regulatory issues such as those relating to standard setting and enforcement have become matters of regular discussion in different policy and academic communities. 2. What is regulation? Regulation is often spoken of as if an identifiable and discrete mode of governmental activity, yet the term regulation has been defined in a number of ways. Selznick's notion of regulation as sustained and focused control exercised by a public agency over activities that are valued by a community has been referred to as expressing a central meaning, but it is perhaps useful to think of the word regulation being used in the following different senses. As a specific set of commands, where regulation involves the promulgation of a binding set of rules to be applied by a body devoted to this purpose. An example would be the health and safety at work legislation as applied by the Health and Safety Executive. As deliberate state influence, where regulation has a broader sense and covers all state actions that are designed to influence business or social behavior. Thus, command-based regimes would come within this usage, but so also would a range of other modes of influence, for instance, those based on the use of economic incentives, e.g. taxes or subsidies, contractual powers, deployment of resources, franchises, the supply of information, or other techniques. As all forms of social or economic influence, where all mechanisms affecting behavior, whether these be state-based or from other sources, e.g. markets, are deemed regulatory. One of the great contributions of the theory of smart regulation has been to point out that regulation may be carried out not merely by state institutions but by a host of other bodies, including corporations, self-regulators, professional or trade bodies, and voluntary organizations. According to this third, broad usage of the term regulation, there is no requirement that the regulatory effects of a mechanism are deliberate or designed, rather than merely incidental to other objectives. As a final comment on the concept of regulation, it should be noted that regulation is often thought of as an activity that restricts behavior and prevents the occurrence of certain undesirable activities, red light concept. The broader view is, however, that the influence of regulation may also be enabling or facilitative. Green light, as, for example, where the airwaves are regulated so as to allow broadcasting operations to be conducted in an ordered fashion, rather than left to the potential chaos of an uncontrolled market.
In conclusion to this part, the future of regulation is a blank canvas, waiting to be shaped by emerging technologies, evolving markets, and our collective demands for fairness and sustainability. Will we embrace smart regulations that adapt to change? Will we ensure they serve the needs of people and planet, not just corporate interests? The answers lie in our hands, in our continued conversations, and in our unwavering commitment to building a better, more equitable economic landscape. This video was just the beginning. Like, share and subscribe for more.